and welcome to Dad and Swebb Talk Sports. I'm Swebb.
And I'm Dad.
And we are the dad and daughter duo talking about all of our favorite sports moments from the week. Dad, what's going on?
Not much, Swebb. Not much.
You've had a busy week.
Yes, I have. I get around, Swebb.
You do. You were in Chapel Hill this past weekend. There's been a ton of good sports action. Should we start with your trip to Chapel Hill?
Yeah, let's go.
So you went up to see UNC basketball, your beloved, play against the Boston College Eagles. Tell us about the experience, Dad.
It was good. We drove up there Friday night. Stayed in the hotel. And a lot of Carolina fans. And the hotel's like 5 minutes from the campus. And then the way it works, you go to a mall parking lot, take a bus, a shuttle bus, over to the stadium. It drops you off right in front of the stadium. Just like I like it, Swebb. Very little walking.
I thought you could park in the parking garage next to the arena.
No, that's only if you have season tickets. There's a lot. If you have season tickets, you can park next door. And then there's other on-campus parkings. This is how it is at most of these schools. These big schools with these on-campus football stadiums and on-campus arenas, it's hard getting parking. So you park off campus, you take a shuttle bus.
We've definitely parked in the garage next to the Dean Dome.
They don't have a garage there anymore.
Okay, so they must have gotten rid of it to put dorms or something, but
yes,
there's definitely a parking garage.
Yes, they put dorms over there. But,
got it.
Yeah, and that wasn't like right next to it. That was still a little walk up a hill.
Yeah, you had to walk up a little bit of a hill.
Yeah, a little bit of a hill. It was a hill.
Okay, so enough about the parking. Tell us about the game. Now, UNC won in overtime.
Yes, they
just
did.
Barely won by the skin of their teeth, 102-98.
Yeah, they didn't play good again. And, walking around the arena, a lot of people are not happy down there with the way that this season is going. But it's different than New York. They don't start booing their own team. They just make hand motions like that kind of stuff. Only in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston do people boo their own players. Down there, the people aren't happy. And remember, these are kids they're talking about. So they don't trash them like they do pro players up here, up in New York.
Well, the team's not playing well. You mentioned last week they're not that good. That seems to be the case because they are 13-8 this season, 6-3 in the ACC. That is 5th in the ACC. And they went with a 4-guard lineup. So they had R.J. Davis, Elliot Cadeau, who've been regular starters. They've been going back and forth between Ian Jackson, the freshman, and Seth Trimble, who was out for a few games because of a head injury. So they actually were both in the starting lineup with Van Allen Lubin. And so it seemed to be a good way to get the team going. Seth Trimble, what did he have? 18 points, 12 rebounds.
He played a great game.
He's not that tall himself. R.J. Davis had 22, 5 and 5. Ian Jackson had 19 points, 0 rebounds, which I find a little crazy of a stat line for anyone in a game where they're playing 25 plus minutes. And then off the bench, Jalen Washington had 18 points and 6 rebounds.
He played a great game.
He played a great game. Drake Powell, who's usually in the starting lineup, he came off the bench, played 27 minutes, was big for them towards the end of the game in guarding the inbounds plays that resulted in some late turnovers in regulation that led to the overtime. He's very long. He's 6'6", but he's got very long limbs, and it made it very difficult for Boston College to get the ball, and a few times caused a few turnovers in those last 2 minutes of the game. He's been in the starting lineup, not necessarily an offensive player, more of that defensive guy, but I think the 4-guard lineup is probably the way that they need to go moving forward. They just need to go small and continue to push the ball because they need the offensive production.
Yeah, they do, but their defense in that game was horrible, and because they don't have enough big men or effective big men defensively, it makes it very difficult.
And
And
Boston College had a few big men that were seemingly able to get to the basket at will. So, yes, it's a difficult task. But we've talked about this execution. They're not the most talented squad in the league, certainly not by their standards. But if you can execute and each player can play to the best of their abilities, both offensively and defensively, then you have a shot to win. Now, they this week or tonight, or what is it? Tonight,
Tuesday night, 8 or 9
Tuesday
o'clock.
night against Pittsburgh in Pitt. So Pitt's always a difficult matchup, although their records are pretty similar this season. And then on Saturday, they play against Duke. They go to Durham and they play against Duke. So this is a tough stretch for them. What are your expectations for Tuesday night's game and Saturday? More importantly, Saturday, the big rivalry.
Pittsburgh's a pretty decent team. They got to grind it out. They're capable of beating them, but they have to play a real good game. Saturday night against Duke. Hey, Duke almost lost at home to NC State last night. So just remember, this is what everybody forgets. These are kids we're talking about. You know what I'm saying? We're not talking about grown men. We're talking about 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 year. Anything can happen. They're very unpredictable. They could have a fight with their girlfriend the night before. They could, and all of a sudden they get thrown off. So everything's possible.
Well, that's what makes March Madness so great, is that anything's possible on any given day. But from what we've seen, if we're being realistic here, it looks like it's going to be a long Saturday night for the Tar Heels. But hey, I will take whatever I can get. So if they end up winning, I'm happy with it. Obviously, that's the game that you want them to win of all the games. But I'm also going to set my expectations.
Duke and Auburn have the best two teams in the country. Hands down. We played against Auburn in Maui. They're real good. I've watched a bunch of Duke games so far this year. They're real good. We'll see what happens. They do depend on three freshmen. One of them, Cooper Flagg, is incredible player. We'll see what happens.
Is there an earthquake down south, or what's happening? Because you continue, the camera keeps shaking.
Oh, it's this table. You know, Swebb, this is a round table, so I don't have as much room to bang the table. That's the problem.
Just stop banging the table.
There's not much room with the microphone.
Or if you had less of a belly, then you'd have a little bit more room there. But when your stomach's all the way up to the edge of the table and you're tucked in there nice and tight, yeah. Now every single time you move your hands, the camera's shaking.
The belly's going down a little bit, Swebb. Hey, you recognize this jacket?
Last week you said that you'd been eating too much.
Yeah, but guess what? Over the last week, I've lost 1 pound a day.
Wow.
I've switched some things up. Do you recognize this jacket?
I do recognize that jacket. Have you not been able to wear that for the past couple of years?
Couple of years. This jacket is 25 years old. I used to wear this to you and your brother's games when you guys were in high school.
Yeah, but what did it not fit for a while, or
no? I couldn't
that it's
find
reemerged?
it. I don't know. Yeah, we got the clothes police here that likes to put stuff away, and all of a sudden, with moving and everything, all of a sudden, oh, look at this! I haven't seen this in a while. Not bad.
It does look a little tighter than I remember.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. All right, so let's transition to the Knicks, because the Knicks came off of a big win on Monday night against the Memphis Grizzlies, 143 to 106 against Memphis. This is their second game in a row where they've scored 143 games after beating the Sacramento Kings on Saturday, 143 to 120. They are on a 4-game win streak. The game against Memphis, that's a very good Memphis team who's number 3 in the Western Conference and had also been on their own 6-game win streak. I think they had been 8-2 in their 10 games leading up to the game last night at the Garden. So huge win for the Knicks. Dad, what are some of your initial thoughts? We can talk through this game.
Well, last night's game, I got the Memphis feed, so I had the Memphis announcers announcing it. And they were raving about the Knicks. They were raving about Memphis at the beginning of the game, and they said this is going to be a big test. And the Knicks totally embarrassed them. And in the fourth quarter, the Knicks, their starters didn't even play. And they were just hammering Memphis, hammering them.
So the first half was actually pretty close. It was 60-52 at the half.
Right.
The second half, the Knicks scored 83 points in the second half. Throughout the game, they had 20 steals. They scored 36 points off of turnovers. 7 guys had 10-plus points. Tibbs was able to play the bench for once. So this was, all in all, just a huge win. It seemed to be one of those defining wins. We don't know. We'll see what happens. Wednesday, they obviously play against Denver. But it seemed to be like it could be a defining win for the Knicks, playing against a team that has the same record as them, 31-16, same position in the conference, third in the West, third in the East. The Knicks are now 1 game out of second place behind the Celtics.
That's right.
This is the second game in a row where they've scored 143 points. The first time since 1965-1966 season where they've scored 140-plus points in 2 consecutive games. If we talk about some of the players, Mikal Bridges, a plus of 43, meaning that the team was winning by 43 points in his total minutes on the court. He had 26 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. OG Anunoby was at a plus 41. We know that he's always top of the league in plus minus. Karl Anthony Towns continues to do what he does, 24 points, 11 rebounds. That seemed to be a light showing out of him, his stat line, but still very effective. He only played 3 quarters, right? Mm-hmm. And then we got quality minutes from Precious Achiuwa, Cam Payne, and Miles McBride.
They all played great. The steals, the defense, they all played great. And they just kept pouring it on. There was no mercy shown last night. None whatsoever.
As a fan, it's the type of game that you like to see. A very good team that you're playing against. And they just never let their foot off the gas. And it allowed for them to open up the bench, open up the Rolodex of guys in the lineup for Tibbs to be able to use. You see what can happen. Now, granted, they won the game by close to 40 points, right? But you see what can happen when guys feel a little bit of rest. They hadn't played since Saturday, so they had a few days off there. The team's a lot more effective when everyone has a little bit of time to rest.
That's true. I kept trying to tell you that the last few weeks, Swebb. These guys, the starters have to play less minutes, and you have to give the bench more opportunities to play. I've been telling you this.
So this week Wednesday they play Denver, Saturday they play the Lakers, and Monday they play Houston, all at home. Denver's obviously a very good team. The Lakers are always difficult. You know, teams like to show up to the Garden and make sure they're in their,
the Lakers are playing
their
good.
A-game.
Lakers are playing very good. Anthony Davis scored like 40 points last night and had 20-something rebounds.
I'm interested to see if this win can really be a defining moment for the Knicks. They're at a similar record that they were at last year. I'd like to see them continue to string wins along. They're obviously on a 4-game win streak. But, this seems to be one of those where some of the guys that maybe were a little bit more inconsistent, like Mikal Bridges, a game where he can have a really effective showing. Hopefully it gives everyone confidence to continue throughout the rest of this month and into the second half of the season.
When he plays well and scores well, it makes things a lot easier. And when OG scores well and Bridges scores well, they're unbeatable. Because you know what you're getting from Brunson.
Right, and OG is not necessarily a scorer. So the fact that when he's scoring, obviously they're destined to win in those games. Mikal Bridges, we've talked about this. We want to see him be that legitimate third option offensively on a consistent basis to take a little bit of the pressure off of Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, because they're going to get their points, but you need someone else to step up. Mm-hmm. The teams historically that have had a big 3 offensively have gone on to win championships.
Yeah. That's the way. Yeah, you have to have at least 3 scorers consistently every night. And if you have 4, man. Last year the Celtics had 4, they won a championship.
Josh Hart scored 4 points last night. He's been playing incredible all season. I don't think anyone was expecting him to be averaging 14 points a game. So you'll take that, right? Like, that's a bonus if he can, besides all the rebounding and the defensive intensity that he shows on the court and the minutes that he's able to eat up. If he's also scoring, we've talked about it, the starting five is very dangerous for the Knicks. But the key is, especially during the playoffs, you're playing every other night. You don't get that much rest. So you need all of these guys to be able to step up and have a showing like they did Monday night against Memphis.
Yes, you do.
Speaking of two stars, we've got two All-Stars named to the Eastern Conference All-Star squad as starters. Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns. The first time that we have had a Knicks starter since 2016 with Carmelo Anthony. And the first time since 1975 where the Knicks have had two starters, Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe.
I remember that. Seems like yesterday, Swebb.
That was right around the time that they won a championship.
Coincidentally, yes. That was, what, a year or two after they won a championship?
50 long years.
Between them and the Jets, man, I'm telling you.
You know how to pick them.
It's tough, Swebb. It's tough. But like I told you, you got to hang with them. See, now look. Now it's cycled back around half a century later, and we're ready to start looking like addressing a championship again. It's only been a half a century, Swebb.
Well, speaking of Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, the first time he's been selected as a starter. Now, the vote is 50% of the fan vote and then 25% of the media, 25% of the players vote. Jalen Brunson really kind of rose up the ranks into that starting position because of the media and the player vote, which I think is just as important as the fan vote. But it feels good for the Knicks to... It's one thing to clinch the second seed in the East last year, get to the second round of the playoffs, be a competitive team, the Garden's jumping every game, everyone's super excited as fans. But now you start to feel like, okay, now we've got guys that are going to be starters. There's the potential, if the fan base can really get on board with it, that like a Josh Hart could end up in the All-Star game because he's just such a fan favorite. So to have now two starters in the All-Star game and to have this buzz around the team, to have them playing as well as they are, they're 6.5 games out of first, 1 game back of second. It just is starting to feel like never did I think you've got players on other teams asking for trades and players wanting to come here. It just...
Players on other teams getting suspended because
they're not showing up for practice or
been suspended 3
flights.
times so far.
We're talking about Jimmy Butler for those who haven't been following that of the Miami Heat. It just feels so nice to have the team that doesn't have the dysfunction and is also playing well.
When did you think you'd be 5 years ago? Did you think you'd be saying that the Knicks don't have dysfunction?
No. Honestly, I haven't felt this good just collectively about the organization since I was probably in like 5th or 6th grade.
Who was on the team back then?
Patrick Ewing.
Oh.
John Starks.
You were old enough to remember that?
Yeah. That was the last time that they were really good. It was in like the 93, 94 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, they had to go up against teams like Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls at that time.
Or Houston with Elijah won.
Yep, and the Miami Heat were always tough during that time with Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning. So it just feels nice as a Knicks fan to have a very productive, very exciting, the guys are easy to root for, they're fun, they all seem like they want to be playing here.
Oh.
It's just feels good. Feels good.
And they have a great coach, and that puts and they have a great general manager that assembled all these guys on the team. So
And you know how we like to craft an organization. You got to start with the general manager and then get the great coach. So, hey, it's working for the Knicks. We won't talk about the Jets today because there hasn't been any new news since they brought in Aaron Glenn as the head coach.
Well, they have a general manager now.
Who's the general manager?
I forget his name. He wasn't very impressive in the. He wasn't very impressive in the. In the press conference. Aaron Glenn was tremendously impressive. It's like he's running the show, and the general manager's just kind of sitting there. And he was happy. The media only had one question for the general manager and had about 10 or 15 questions for Aaron Glenn. He seems like a nice fella, though.
You know what's really sad about the state of the Jets? I didn't even know that they got a general manager, and I'm watching. I don't even think I got an ESPN alert, and I follow the team. I don't even think I saw anything on Instagram.
They stuck him in a few days ago, and they both had a joint press conference yesterday. And I stayed up last night and watched the tapes of all that, plus interviews with everything was geared towards Aaron Glenn, who is a leader. He said he's going to hire a good defensive coordinator, a good offensive coordinator. He's not coaching. He's not going to be calling plays for either the offense or defense during the game. He's going to be coaching and leading the team. Exactly what we discussed a week or two ago. The head coach, just coach the team, motivate the players, challenge the players, discipline the players. He's not fooling around. And he said they're going to win. He played for the team, and it seems like he's going to hire some of his former teammates with the Jets as some position coaches.
That must have been the quietest general manager hiring.
Right. I don't even remember his name. The man gave
Darren.
And he gave a 1-minute speech yesterday.
Mugay or Mauji. I don't know how you say it. We'll figure it out by the time he gets fired. But longtime executive of the Denver Broncos.
And he's going to be reporting straight to Woody Johnson, the owner, and Aaron Glenn is going to be reporting straight to Woody Johnson.
Johnson. Okay, so this is just a general manager by name only.
Kind of, but he has to run the draft and draft some good plays and make some good trades.
Well, let's see what he's got.
We'll see.
We'll learn how to pronounce his name.
They did do a good job the last few years in Denver.
We've been following this for weeks, and the fact that I didn't even realize that happened. I don't even know what was 3 days ago. What was that? Saturday?
Yeah, something like that.
They slipped that in there like one of Biden's partings of his family on the way out the door.
Yeah, just like one of those.
That was like a magic trick. It's like, here's your head coach and here's your general manager.
That's exactly what it was like. He's
Thanks for picking the Jets, dude. Thanks for picking the Jets.
Oh, man.
All right. So talking about football.
Yes.
Dad, are you excited for the Super Bowl?
Not really.
Same. Now, the Super Bowl, we have our two teams, the Kansas City Chiefs, again, going for their third straight Super Bowl win against the Philadelphia Eagles.
I was hoping it was going to be Detroit and Buffalo.
Yeah. From the start of the playoffs, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was rooting for the Vikings. That didn't go well. Then I stopped rooting for teams. But yes, as a Jets fan, it's crazy to say that I was rooting for Buffalo, but I was really hoping for Buffalo. Not as passionate about the NFC, but I would have preferred the Commanders, if I'm being honest. Let me
tell you something. That Buffalo team, I think they're just as good as Kansas City. It just so happens something always goes wrong. They never have the ball. Last year they lost in overtime. The year before, a few years ago, they lost they had a lead with 13 seconds to go, and the coach, it was a bad coaching decision, a squib kicking, and gave him field position, and Mahomes took it down the field. Hey, Buffalo did everything they had to do. It's crazy.
So this will be a rematch of Super Bowl 37 that the Kansas City Chiefs won 38-35. So, I think everyone in America is rooting for it to be a tie, with the exception of those people in the Kansas and Missouri areas and Philadelphia, South Jersey. And just at this point, this is probably the first time after the conference championship games where I didn't hear anyone talking about the Super Bowl on Monday. Like, no one was talking about the game. No one's excited about the game. Both two great teams. Philadelphia is a huge market, big fan bases, but I think people are just sick of the Chiefs.
Everybody's chiefed out.
Yeah. And I've been chiefed out for a few years. Yes, I'm going to watch the game, obviously, but I can't think of another year where I've just been less excited about the matchup. Even though it is a very good matchup. You've got the first in the AFC versus number 2 in the NFC. So I'm hoping that Philadelphia does their thing. But at the same time, it's like, I don't even like Philly teams. And I really have a problem with the Empire State Building turning on the colors of other teams that aren't
I still
based
can't
in New
figure
York.
that one out. They lit they lit it up with Philadelphia green, the Eagles green.
They've done that a few times. They lit it up with Dodgers blue and white after the World Series.
They did?
I think so. There's no rule that says. I don't know who made the rules. Whoever made the rules for the Empire State Building is not a sports fan.
And they're not a New York fan, that's for sure.
And they're not a New York fan. Okay? This is a New York City establishment building. You don't have to turn the college sports, fine. A sport where New York doesn't have a team, which isn't possible, fine. But all these other sports, if a New York team is in it, especially if they're a rival of a New York team, you cannot turn the Empire State Building the colors of that team. Like, enough is enough. No one's looking in the sky. No one, I guarantee you, no one on Sunday coming home from Penn Station or wherever else they were coming home from looked in the sky and said, oh my gosh, the Empire State Building is green and white for the Eagles or red and gold or whatever their colors are for the Chiefs. No one. So I'm throwing the flag on that one.
Yeah, throw the flag. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe that when I saw that on TV.
I remember it last year because I'm pretty sure it was also like a Philly team or something. There was a rival or a team that had beaten a New York team that they were turning the lights a different color. I just don't understand it. I don't know the iconic buildings in Kansas City and, Philadelphia, but I don't think anyone's shining a orange and blue light on the Liberty Bell when the Knicks make it to the NBA championship.
Yeah. Crazy, Swebb.
So, all right. So the rest of this week, hey, Man City's got a big match Wednesday afternoon against Club Brugge, which is a Belgian team. They must win the match to make it into the next round, the knockout round of the Champions League. It's a shame that it's come to this, but they have to win this match. And then
it seems like they're playing a little better lately. They get some of their injured players back?
It's like a seesaw. They play well, then they lose after being up in a match that they need to win. Then they play well, then they lose. So I don't know what's going to happen. They had a big match against Chelsea that they won this past weekend. Sunday they play at Arsenal, which will be tough. Arsenal is second place in the Premier League, 6 points. Man City is 6 points back of Arsenal in fourth place, 12 points back of first place in the Premier League. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, hey, Dad, pitchers and catchers report on February 12th. We're about 2 weeks out.
There's going to be a lot of stuff going on the next few weeks, next few months, Webb. We got pitchers and catchers, spring training getting ready to start. in about 2.5 weeks. We got lacrosse, college lacrosse starting this weekend. I'm going to be going and seeing Duke play in Jacksonville the weekend after. One of my guys is going to be performing in Nashville in April. And I'm going to run over there for a few days, see this young man perform.
Okay.
Got
so
a lot of
life
action
is good,
going
huh?
on. Oh, speaking of music, Swebb, I've been knocked and mocked and criticized that I have no rhythm. I can't dance. Saturday at Dean Smith Center, at the end of the Carolina game. You know the music they always play at the end of the game?
Yes. Let's roll the tape.
Roll the tape, Swebb. Roll the tape.
You still can't dance.
Swebb, I was moving a little bit. It was kind of tight in there in the seats there. I didn't have like a dance floor or anything. It was like
Whatever you say, dude. Whatever you say. You still can't dance. So it sounds like you got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. Maybe you can fit some dance lessons into the mix in your free time for your next, victory dance. Whenever that comes, we don't know.
No, they play that song at the end of every game, whether you win or lose. But it's a lot better when they win.
You obviously wouldn't be dancing if they had lost to Boston College in overtime.
No, I wouldn't have. But
you would have been crying. So I'm glad that you got the chance to dance, for better or for worse. Dad, anything else that you're looking forward to? I know you just went through your whole spring calendar.
Yeah, got a lot of action going on, Swebb.
I'll see you in a few weeks as well.
Yes. You'll see me down here, and you'll also see me up in New York, Swebb.
Again? I thought you left the state. Like, what? Did you leave or what? Like, what's the point of leaving if you're going to continue to come back? For as much as you complain about New York for a large portion of my life, the fact that you can't let it go is really just something to behold.
Wait, and I'm picking, you know what? No, forget it.
I picked a good restaurant. You liked the prices.
You did. I'm going to drive my car and park
crumb on the plate.
I'm going to park my car right outside.
No. Because you can't find parking that easily in New York to be doing that.
What about that restaurant right across the street from your building, Swebb?
Well, if there isn't a line there, then maybe. But it'll cost you.
Oh, forget that. What about the
bagel?
What about the bagel place?
You either have to pay more or you have to...
what about the deli downstairs? Do they serve anything besides bagels?
Their bagels suck. So, no, I don't want to buy anything from there because their bagels aren't even... If they can't master bagels, then I'm not really interested in trying anything else on the menu. Okay, before we close things out, do you want to leave us with a dad tip of the week?
Oh, man. Yeah. Move around. Don't stay in one spot. Move around.
Says the guy who's complaining about walking around a few blocks.
Look at all the places that I've been to, Swebb. I plan on going to over the next.
No one was stopping you from moving around until now. Your eyes have just finally been opened.
Well,
We're glad that you're having a great awakening.
I have some young people I want to support, so I'm going to go out and see them. One plays lacrosse, one sings. Maybe I'm down in Nashville. Maybe they might ask me to come up on stage at the
I guarantee you they won't.
What's the name of the Grand Opry?
Knowing your musicality, they won't. But hey, Maybe you can take some singing and dance lessons in your free time as well.
Um, Sammy Davis was before your time, but he could dance and sing and everything.
I know who Sammy Davis is.
You do? Okay, well, that's
and you
me.
are not him. All right. Well, that concludes this week's episode of Dad and Swebb Talk Sports. Be sure to follow us at Dad and Swebb on Instagram and X. Subscribe on YouTube and Rumble, and share this episode with a friend. We will see you next week.
So long.
Thank you for tuning in to Dad and Swebb Talk Sports, the show where we cover all of our favorite sports moments from the past week. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and Rumble, and follow us at Dad and Swebb on Instagram and X. See you next week.